Officer Center then observed that the driver of the vehicle failed to make a proper turn signal when it turned north onto Van Buren Avenue. At 9:37 p.m., Officer Center attempted to make a traffic stop on Van Buren Avenue by activating his blue lights. However, the vehicle did not stop and continued traveling on Van Buren Avenue. The driver made a left-hand turn onto Harrison Street to travel west. After traveling a short distance on Harrison Street, the driver stopped the vehicle, exited the vehicle, and fled on foot. Approximately halfway down Harrison Street, Cook exited his vehicle with K-9 Alec to conduct a search for Shumpert. The K-9 began to lead Officer Cook into a backyard off Harrison Street directly at the rear of a residence. As Officer Cook entered the yard and approached the residence, he could see a crawl-space door leading underneath the home. Officer Cook noticed a hand holding the door shut from underneath the residence. Officer Cook then drew his weapon, opened the door, and observed a male under the residence with the same description and clothing as the one given by Officer Center. Officer Cook announced himself as the Tupelo Police Department and then commanded the subject to show his hands. The suspect failed to comply and began to move further underneath the house. Officer Cook at this time released his K-9 with the bite command. A struggle began to ensue between Shumpert and the K-9 underneath the house. During the struggle, K-9 Alec lost control of Shumpert, but still had Shumpert's jersey in his mouth. Shumpert removed his jersey, exited from under the house, charged Officer Cook, and tackled Officer Cook. During the struggle, Antwun Shumpert was able to get on top of Officer Cook. While Shumpert was on top of Officer Cook, he began to strike Officer Cook repeatedly in the face and head with his fist. Officer Cook stated that he started to lose consciousness and feared for his life. Officer Cook fired his weapon while on the ground and with Antwun Shumpert on top of him. Shumpert was struck by 4 projectiles fired from Officer Cook's firearm. The District Attorney's Office has obtained a copy of the autopsy performed on the body of Antwun Shumpert by forensic pathologist Mark M. Levon, M.D. Detailed photographs accompany the autopsy report. The autopsy reveals that Mr. Shumpert died as a result of multiple gunshot wounds, one to the upper right chest. The bullet exited the body and was therefore not recovered. One to the mid-lower chest. The bullet was recovered from Mr. Shumpert's back. One to the lateral right chest. The bullet was recovered from Mr. Shumpert's back. And one to the medial left groin. That bullet was recovered from Mr. Shumpert's pelvic cavity. Each gunshot wound is anterior to posterior or front to back. The autopsy reveals no other evidence of traumatic injury that would have caused or contributed to Mr. Shumpert's death. There are no wounds described in the autopsy that would be consistent with a dog bite. There were 2 neighbors interviewed who both confirmed being outside on the night of June 18th. During the search for Shumpert, both witnesses reported hearing gunshots in rapid succession. There has been additional investigation into claims made by and information provided by the Shumpert family representative. There have been several claims made by a representative for the Shumpert family regarding the events of June 18th, 2016. Some of those claims are as follows. Number 1, that as Shumpert attempted to surrender, K-9 Alec viciously mutilated parts of Mr. Shumpert's body, causing severe injuries to the right side of his back and his groin. However, there are no injuries noted in the autopsy consistent with a dog bite. The injuries to Mr. Shumpert's groin were caused by a gunshot wound, and the photographs accompanying the autopsy are consistent with a gunshot wound. The markings and injuries described by the family representative and shown in a post-autopsy photograph of Mr. Shumpert's back, claiming those markings represent the results of the K-9 attack, are actually representative of 3 exploratory cuts to locate 2 of the projectiles in Mr. Shumpert's body and 2 deeper cuts to excise the bullets from Mr. Shumpert's back. Photographs of Shumpert taken at the scene by Tupelo Police Department and photographs made under the direction of Dr. Levon showing the state of the body prior to the autopsy clearly show Mr. Shumpert's entire back to be clear of any injury whatsoever. It is also alleged that while trying to defend himself against the attack by the K-9, Officer Cook approached Shumpert and shot him 4 times, 3 times to the chest and once in the abdomen. However, the physical evidence supports Officer Cook's account of the altercation. The presence of blood on Officer Cook, the close range of the gunshots to Mr. Shumpert described in the autopsy, the bullet paths described in the autopsy, and the location and compact patterns of shell casings discharged from Officer Cook's weapon onto the ground all refute this claim. Another claim was that Officer Cook kicked or stomped Shumpert in the mouth, knocking 4 of his bottom teeth backwards towards his throat. According to Dr. Levon, Mr. Shumpert did receive some blunt force trauma to the face, including to the lower mouth, resulting in some damage to the lip and the teeth. The cause of this injury would be speculative at this point. It has also been strongly implied that there exist eyewitnesses to the altercation between Shumpert, K-9 Alec, and Officer Cook who can substantiate the above made claims, and further that there are statements from these witnesses in the representative's possession. After repeated attempts by NBI to obtain this information without success, my office made contact with the attorney for the Shumpert family and requested that he provide all witness names and contact information and a copy of any and all witnesses in any form. In response, I was provided 2 names of witnesses, a male and a female, and an affidavit from Charles Foster, who was the passenger in the Shumpert vehicle. The family representative claimed these witnesses had relevant information and that the female witness claimed to possess a relevant cell phone video. Lieutenant Chad Cummings of NBI interviewed the witnesses and discovered they resided next door to 916 Harrison, and that they were the individuals stopped by Officer Michael Russell prior to the shooting and therefore were with Officer Russell when the shots were fired. It would have been impossible for either of the named individuals to see or record an eyewitness account of the altercation. This morning at 9 a.m., the same grand jury was recalled to make inquiry into the Shumpert case. After presentation of the case and due deliberation, the grand jury found that Officer Tyler Cook acted lawfully on June 18, 2016, and has cleared Officer Cook of any criminal wrongdoing.